Good afternoon and good morning to those over in WA, and welcome to the next exciting chapter of our webinar, The Remote Digital Agent, hosted by conveyancing.com.au, Think Conveyancing, and our newest partner in the market, Openn Negotiation. Great to have you on board with us here today, Brad. And we welcome Will from McGrath down in Geelong there.
Thanks, Paul. Thanks for having me.
No worries. It's fantastic to have you on board today, and obviously some exciting news this week about partnering with Openn Negotiation. I've been dealing with you guys for quite a while now, Brad, and it's exciting times. And I've been using the service for quite a while, and which I love.
Yeah.
To the service, we're going to kick it off today. A few people logging in. There's some hope in the market. Things seem to be flattening with the curve since we had our last WebEx or webinar last week. And but I guess the clear message at the moment is everyone do the right thing and stay at home and have Easter at home and do the right thing. I'll ask both of you gentlemen, I'm going to open the floor to questions today. What has shocked or surprised you the most with this whole COVID-19 outbreak?
I'll let you go first, Brad.
For me, look, it's the speed at which everything just did stop. It was sort of avoided, and I guess people sort of didn't believe that it was going to affect us for quite some time, and then everything just switched off overnight. And I think that the federal government did what they did quite swiftly in the end, and the market literally did stop overnight. So going from say at least between 20 and 50 inquiries via the portals per day, to quite literally last week, I think we had a total of 5 across all of our listings, across all the portals.
And just for all our viewers out there, where are you based, Brad?
I'm in Perth. So I've got an agency in Fremantle called Mint Real Estate. So we stopped like everybody else did.
Right in the heart of it too.
Yeah.
How are you finding it down there in sunny Geelong?
In sunny Geelong, it's actually sunny it's probably the one of 4 sunny days we get a year at the moment. So hopefully I can get out and enjoy it. But much the same as Brad, from a personal point of view, just the chaos that came from, I guess, the way technology is these days. Everyone has access to social media and the news, and everyone just jumped on the bandwagon of the stupid toilet paper rolls and all that sort of jazz that we now look back and say is quite comic, but it was pretty crazy at the time. But yeah, from a real estate point of view, things have, at McGrath, we're saying business as unusual, meaning that it's still usual, it's just a bit different. So we're still selling houses, we're still listing houses, but there's no denying that the market has slowed down. There's not as many buyers around, but there's also equally not as many sellers. So there's still transactions to take place.
So it's interesting because today we can get a good perspective of smack bang in the middle of WA, smack bang in the middle of the east coast of Melbourne. So how are you finding the vendor side over there, Brad? Are they engaging what you're now saying to them in regards to moving online?
I think what Will just said about a shortage of stock right now is right on mark. And where I am, it's a reasonably affluent area. People aren't forced to be sellers. There are no forced sellers at this point in time. So most people have just hunkered down, which has actually really, really dried up and tightened up supply. And the buyers who had sold and are coming up to settlement now, they have actually been red hot. So while we haven't been getting new interest from buyers who've just decided to start looking now, the hot ones who had sold and are out to buy are ferocious, and they've paid good money, and they bought pretty quickly.
Interesting. So I know, especially over here in Melbourne, we had very much a data stock shortage, I should say, according to all the data we'd had. So the market had gone off. We'd just gone through this Royal Commission last year, which was tough enough. And so how do you think this differs from what we've seen, this COVID-19, from what we saw in the Royal Commission or 9-10 years ago in the GFC?
Yeah, this is, I wasn't in real estate in the GFC, so I was just living off mum and dad, so things were pretty good for me then. So that's the first thing I'll say, so I can't comment there. But the Royal Commission, that only affected some people, whereas this is affecting every single human being in the world in some way, shape or form. So, and everyone knows that. Everyone walks around doing their exercise and sort of has this look at each other as though you know what I'm going through and I know what you're going through. So that's the biggest impact, I think, is that everyone is being affected. Some people have taken reductions in pay, some have been put off, some haven't at all, but that's very few and far between. So this will take a long, long time, in my opinion, for us to come out of this hangover and to come out the other side. I don't know how long, but let's hope it's not as long as I think.
Well, with the changes of legislation, the changes of what people can do at the moment, the overnight changes of property management, we're just chatting about before the it's a very different world, and it's very unknown. Like, the rules sort of change day by day, hour by hour, depending. How are you finding it in regards to rental properties and the strain that's putting on the property management team, both mentally and work-wise, given the fact that some dedicated set rules haven't been set, and we do understand there's a lot of people out there, as I put it earlier, pulling the piss, thinking that they don't have to pay rent just because the Prime Minister says you don't have to pay your rent.
Yeah, well, look, it's been interesting because we shut down our office 2 weeks ago now. So all of my staff have been working from home. So the girls were dealing with that challenge. And then certainly the property management department has also now been dealing with the layoffs, the pay cuts, and then of course the government announcements, which seem to be coming. I mean, they're coming every single day at the moment, but we haven't had any landlord relief as yet. So although there's the moratorium on evictions, we have definitely had some people trying to take advantage of that. So, you know, for my girls, it's been a case of, look, let's be compliant, let's be professional, and let's be human. And let's not forget what we're here to do, which is, you know, operate in the best interest of our landlords. But, you know, we've had some, you know, equally landlords that are under a lot of duress right now as well, whose tenants have now stopped paying. And, yeah, it's just a matter of trying to balance.
What's interesting is, as of about 2 months ago, we ticked over just over 1,000 properties under management in our office. To give you some context of what I'm about to say, as soon as this news came out, the first people to call us were landlords, not tenants, saying we're happy to reduce the rent for the tenant by $150, $200 a week. And first thing we said was just hold fire. There's no point doing that if that's not going to be needed. So that was the first thing. They started to stress and wanted to be the first to offer relief, which is fantastic. But we've had, out of 1,000 properties, we've had 12 tenants actually have their rent reduced. And the reason for that is we've asked them, we've sort of vetted them on, they need to show proof of struggling to pay, you know, being pay slips or redundancy or something like that. And once you put that on them, and we're not here to be rude or cruel, but let's be honest, everyone knows that they can get a reduction if they want, so they're going to ask. But when you actually ask for proof of reason for it, it turns out only a very small portion of people actually need that.
Yeah, I will say I've sold and dealt in the rent roll space for many, many years now. Mate, you must have a very clean portfolio if you've got landlords actually ringing up and getting on the front foot. They're the sorts of landlords you want. And I actually think it's coming out at the end of this, there'll be a lot of directors maybe handing some files back to owners, depending on how they behave during this. And not, as we all know, not all business is good business.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I'm just going to put out there to everybody that is on the webinar today, thank you again for joining us. And we do have a chat line, so feel free to post your questions on your Q&A and send them through to us, and I'll ask the guys during the webinar today. All right, now, digital tools. Obviously, we're a complete utilised digital platform for conveyancing, the largest across Australia, and this week some exciting news come out that we have partnered with Openn to give you that complete and utter digital experience with doing Openn's auctions, selling whole conveyancing without having to physically touch anybody. So what tools are you guys using to help facilitate being a remote digital agent now?
Yeah, certainly. Well, I had always shied away from the 360-degree full immersive home tours. I always felt that I'd like to whet the buyer's appetite on the portals with up to 10 photos, but force them to come in and see the rest of the home themselves. Whereas now, obviously, that landscape has completely changed. So whilst I see a lot of my competitors that are uploading the full 360-degree tour to the portals for anyone to access, what we're doing is actually still putting the the normal photos up and then reference to a full 360, but they've got to contact us before I send them the link or share that access for them. So at least now I've got a name and a number or an email address that I can follow these people up so that I can then give some feedback to my owners. If not, why not? Was it price? Was it something else? Because what I don't want people to do is just all go online, because let's face it, sitting at home, everyone's got a little bit more spare time at the moment. So hit rates are actually still quite high. And I don't want thousands of people looking at properties without me having any barometer as to what they're thinking of the home.
Yeah. Yeah, much the same. DocuSign's one that we were going to implement, and we sort of were dabbling with that, but we've been using that to great effect with authorities and contracts of late, which is fantastic. Social media, I know that's not really sort of new tech, but I've utilised social media pretty well over the last 5 to sort of 7 years, but we've stepped that up again with, telling our marketplace what we see is going on from a real estate point of view, not necessarily trying to sell and list houses, but just be that community voice that they want to hear about how we see the market going. Because what you see on the media is all doom and gloom, and that may not necessarily be the case. So we're trying to tell our community how we see it. And then Openn Negotiation, as Brad mentioned, is something that I've been utilising for the last 10 months or so. And it is incredible how many other agents have called me in the last 3 weeks saying, we want to use it now. We now know that it's the best way and the way forward to sell real estate. So I imagine Brad and the guys at Openn have been inundated with people wanting to utilise the service.
Yeah, and there's been some agents who've done it really creatively as well. So they'll send through the virtual tour to the particular buyer, and then basically it's the click here to make your opening bid on the property. A bit of reassurance that bid's not binding at that point in time, but it just shows the agent that the person is genuinely interested in the home. And then the agent is getting that first number presented to them, and then able to set up that private inspection of the property, whereby then the terms are all agreed and etc. And away we go, and the open negotiations begun.
Fantastic. I'm going to jump on one webinar Q&As over here from Kai. Now, Kai's referring back to the discussion we're having around rent rolls and rental divisions, and this one's for you, Will. Did you put them on, as in the tenants, onto a payment plan to pay the gap back? Time frame on the reduction?
Yeah, I can't answer that, unfortunately. It's not, I don't look after the property management and the intricacies behind it. I just get fed the numbers. So I'm not entirely sure, but I imagine knowing Donna, our property management manager, she would be having them on some kind of payment plan. It wouldn't just be no problem. But it would be, as I said, we're in a world where we need to be human first and real estate agents second. It would be certainly not trying to put that tenant under duress at all.
Fantastic. So, and Brad, on the open negotiation, Kai sent that. Cool. So thank you, Kai, for your question. Feel free to keep your questions coming through, everybody, on our Q&A. So Brad, on the open negotiation side, how have you guys seen it in the past 2 weeks? Has it just gone crazy? Is it?
We've had some record days, and I think March was a new record month for us in terms of number of uploads. As Will said before, just the number of agents wanting to get trained now has been unprecedented. That's a word that I hate using because it's being so overused at the moment. But we've had more numbers through essentially Zoom trainings than we've ever had before, and there's some really, really good engagement from agents all over the country.
It is amazing the buzzwords that are out at the moment. My wife thinks that I say pivot more than I've ever said before. Yes, so it's quite funny. But just a quick question come through from Ryan Scott. Thanks, Ryan, for your question. He just wanted to clarify, is the private house inspection conducted using the 360-degree camera upon request? Aim at yourself, Brad.
So Ulster still uploads, say, 10 photos to realestate.com and domain. In my text, it refers to a 360 tour is available. And then that's emailed through to them, or the link to that is emailed through to that buyer. So it gives them the ability then to take a look at that 360. But as I said before, it gives me the ability, more importantly, to follow that person up afterwards. Then if they want to graduate it to a private inspection of the home, we're going to the home as a one-on-one, masks on in some instances and hand sanitizer, at the ready, and away we go.
Yeah, fantastic. Okay. The another one's just come through, and Ryan just sent through. Thanks, Brad. It's an anonymous question. This one's popped through, and it's aimed at you, Will. So, why did you choose Openn Negotiation? Obviously, you would have done your due diligence. There's a couple of platforms out in the market. How does it stack up versus the competition, and does it have better functionality? So, I think this will save you a phone call from an agent later on, ringing, asking 50 questions.
More than likely, but it's a pretty common question that I get asked all the time. And you brought up, Paul, earlier about the Royal Commission, and last year, you can see the time I started using it was July last year. It wasn't a coincidence that buyers found getting finance really difficult, and I tend to sell via the traditional auction method. So I had lots of auctions where I couldn't have buyers competing for it because they couldn't get their finance unconditional to put their hand up. So I found that Openn Negotiation was the only process I could have conditional and unconditional buyers competing for the same property, which if you allow more buyers competing, you're obviously going to get a higher sale price. But what I found that this does over any other process was that buyers pre-sign a contract. So they are real, genuine buyers. When you're on a tech platform and you can't see who else is there, you want to know that the other people who are on there have done the same thing as you, and that is pre-sign a contract. And once they've pre-signed a contract, you can now advertise that current bid on all the marketing portals, are realestate.com and Domain. So this is the only process in the world that I'm familiar with, and Brad can tell me if I'm right or wrong, that you can actually do those processes. So Openn Negotiation is another process. It's not a bolt-on to an auction or a private sale. It's kind of a hybrid of the two.
Yeah, and I think the big difference between, say, the Perth market and Geelong, where you are, Will, is yours has actually been quite a buoyant market for quite some time now. So for you, it allowed you to get more bidders into the funnel, and more competition actually got you a great result quite quickly. We've had a pretty bad market in West Australia for about the last 4 years, and what we found Openn Negotiation, and I've always pressed this when I've been dealing with West Australian agents, Openn Negotiation is a vendor education tool above all else. It's an awesome platform to get buyers and more buyers competing with each other, but the data, the tangible data that it spits out to the agent and they can share them to the seller, I've never found it with any other method of sale. And for vendor education, that's what's attracted me to it. And I think as we move into a falling market across all jurisdictions in the country, that's where it's going to be super handy to sellers and agents.
Yeah. I've got another question come through now for Will. So this person understands, and that was a great answer, thank you, I just put through, understands that McGrath and a number of other larger agencies are now using online auctions and live streaming services. Do you see the difference between Openn and these other online services where you're physically running an auction via Zoom?
Yeah, well, I did one a couple of weeks to go through Auction Now, and I'm not on here to bag any certain companies, but I found it as an auctioneer quite a difficult process to follow, calling an auction to an iPhone, not knowing who was on the other side of it, and it was a bit grainy and a bit delayed. As Brad mentioned, auctions are great. I think the competition behind an auction is what we're trying to achieve. We want to get more buyers competing for a home, and social proof goes to show if someone's prepared to pay $5,000 more, then typically the next buyer will do as well. So that's usually the best way to get the best result. Whereas with Openn Negotiation, it is no touch. I've sold 5 houses in the last 10 days and I haven't left my house, and I've done it all through Openn Negotiation. DocuSign is now merged in with Openn Negotiation, so it's all the contracts are done digitally. So for me, and as we know, auctions buyers have to have unconditional finance, which in this climate, I'm guessing these numbers, but I imagine 20, 30, 40% of buyers have unconditional finance. The other portion don't. I don't want to discount those buyers from actually being able to compete for the homes I'm selling.
Look, I think the other difference between Openn Negotiation and all the other platforms is that typically with an Openn Negotiation campaign, it might run for 21 to 28 days, something like that. And it is an auction from day one. So when that first bid is made, that's actually advertised across all the portals. And the agent and the owner can basically use that as a litmus test. Is there more interest? Is there less interest? Are we getting towards the top end of this property? So you have time to really test the market throughout, as opposed to auction, the other auctions, which are essentially a digital version of the traditional auction.
I've got a question that's been thrown in here that relates to what we're chatting about at the moment. And what about experience in regards to rural areas where there are very few regular auctions? I actually, being an ex-agent and working in and around this space for a long time and having managed a lot of accounts when I was at CoreLogic regionally, I actually think this is quite a good way to bring people together still, because it's similar to a private sale, such, or an in-room auction. Gentlemen, keen to hear your answers on this one. And thank you, Dean, for your question.
I'll let you go, Brad.
Yeah, look, there are certainly some all types of properties are being sold with it. We've had commercial, we've had broadacre, the bottom end apartments all the way through to riverside and seaside properties sold with it. It is just a mindset change for the agent, and that's all it is. It has and does work in all jurisdictions.
It's not, when we say auction, the beauty of open negotiation is it caters to any process or any way the campaign's running. So if there's one buyer for the property, then all you need to do is actually negotiate with that buyer through open negotiation. And at all times, that bid is advertised online. So you know whether you're getting the best for the vendor, because buyers will come out of the marketplace if it's a low price. But then you can quite simply press a button and it sells the property to that buyer if they're the only buyer involved. So that's more of the private sale arena, but it's transparent to the market. And as Brad mentioned, when you've got more than one bidder, you've got a competition there.
It's the joys of our partnership now. So with our business, conveyancing.com.au is part of it. And obviously Think Conveyancing, being the largest conveyancer in Australia, we offer the things that you'd normally get. So you'd give the buyer the contract and say, go and get your contract review. We can do all that digitally now for them, which keeps them all in the one platform, which is great. Not having to try and put pressure on the local conveyancer that's struggling as it is to get working from home, and watching out for all these finishing and spam emails trying to capture their trust account details at the moment.
Yeah. Well, look, the interesting thing that's happened with Openn Negotiation is that we had been piloting digital contracting in Western Australia for the last couple of months and had just sort of dotted all the I's and crossed all the T's there. And now it's live in Victoria and in Queensland. New South Wales will be turned on by the end of this month, as will South Australia. So what it allows the buyer to do is quite literally go in, put their bid in, and then confirm all of their terms and conditions, which then produces a DocuSign contract for them. They're signing on glass, that then shoots straight across to the seller for their consideration. The agent, of course, is involved in this all the way through, but there's no physical touching of paper or pens and stuff actually required anymore. And that buyer can go all the way through to exchange without touching any paper physically with the agent, which is really, really convenient, seamless.
It certainly is. And those savvy buyers that still want a building and pest inspection, we are other part of what we do. Obviously, is we have rapid building inspections. We do them across Australia. And our guys are classed in the central service, given that people have to. In some states, it's mandatory. In other states, it's best practice. So that is there for those. I have had someone ping me with a question and ask that. So yes, we are still doing building inspections. We've got a couple of other questions here, guys. How do you sell an auction to a buyer who is subject to finance in the current situation?
How do you sell an auction? You can't sell a traditional auction to someone who's subject to finance, but you can have a subject to finance buyer compete under an open negotiation if the vendor approves those terms.
Yeah, it's nice, clear and easy for that one. I've got a question here from Shane Ennis. Does the buyer get to see the reserve?
Once the reserve has been hit, it comes up clearly on the screen that the reserve has been met and the property will sell. They don't get to see the reserve up until that point, though. Yeah.
Fantastic.
But just something I will reiterate, though, under the auction is because open negotiation is classified as an auction, there is no cooling off period in states like Victoria, for instance. So you waive that 3-day cooling off period.
And then it also means in places like New South Wales, there is no 66W required. Again, there is no cooling off. It is legally an auction, which which does allow for two things. It means that the auctioneer ultimately can sign off the contract at the end without the need for the buyer to sign it. So we're not chasing buyers around the country, around the world to sign off the final contract. But then also, as we progress through a campaign, we're obliged to advertise where the bid is at all times, even if that's well below the reserve price. And by doing that, we are not in contravention of any underquoting laws. So you might have $1 million expectation on a property with a $500,000 opening bid, and you are legally, lawfully able to advertise that price across all portals.
Fantastic. I've got another question through, and I'll actually answer this one. So how do you make sure the Section 32 is signed before the contract? Obviously, we're utilising things like DocuSign. Our platform's all digital as well, so we're making sure the vendors, as it's originated, are signing their 32s. But thank you for your question there. A couple of other things, guys. So we're leading into Easter weekend. It's exciting if you're still a kid and you're looking forward to the Easter weekend coming. If you're a big kid and you're just looking forward to receiving some chocolate, not that at the moment. But people want a ray of hope. What are some positives that can be taken out of these times? Like, obviously, we've got low interest rates. That's one thing that's going to boost with first home buyers.
From a real estate agent's point of view, and this is a selfish point of view, but the last industries to be shut down, which real estate hasn't, are typically the first to open up again. So when we do come out of this, real estate will be the first, and the others that haven't been completely shut down to actually be able to do business 100% the way they have. So this is not going to be a very long process, I would imagine. So from a real estate agent's point of view, I'm pretty excited about that. But more from a humanity point of view, as I mentioned earlier, I've never seen so many people walking my local neighbourhood than I am when I'm taking my kids out for a bike ride or going for a walk down to somewhere down the street. And just the smiles on people's faces, it's something I've never experienced before. And it's quite heartwarming. I really do find that it's bringing everyone together. As ironic as that sounds, it is bringing human beings together at this point in time.
Yeah.
It certainly is the old "we are in it all together, aren't we?" And it doesn't matter where you are in the world. But interesting, I've got just a response back from Dean that asked the question before around rural sales. The thing with rural sales, that you had fewer buyers and the sale can happen over a longer period of time, i.e. 6 to 12 months, depending on the property. Loves the idea, but it needs to be more convincing how it would work in unique circumstances. What I'm going to do, Dean, I'll take that one offline, and I'm going to ping you an email, CC Brad and Will in, and I'll get some correspondence going from there. But thanks, mate. I do appreciate your question. And rural always is differently. It works very differently. I live just out of Melbourne, about an hour out of Melbourne, and I was chatting to an agent yesterday as I was getting a coffee, and he said to me, he goes, "Mate, you're in shorts and a T-shirt. I don't think I've ever seen you in shorts and a T-shirt." I'm like, well, we're all working from home now, so have to be. And he said it's interesting, the buyers that have come up to view properties up here or up in Wood End, and he just said are making a decision within half an hour and coming back and saying, bang, we want to buy. Which I think is a good thing. The stock level situation does change. Got a few more questions. Just going to give everyone the heads up. We are going to run over a little bit today because it's quite exciting. A lot of questions pumping through. As all negotiations are open to public in a private treaty situation, how does it go with the Privacy Act?
So bids are disclosed all the way through, exactly the same as what happens with an auction. Okay, the bidders' names, that's always confidential. So as far as the public's concerned, they can only see that the red paddle number 4613 is the leading bidder. They don't know names or numbers or anything like that. They can just see the price and the number of bidders at all times. Yeah.
Sure. Okay, let's stick with that one, Brad. And I've got it's an anonymous question here. It's come through, and we will answer it as best we can. But please do not take it as gospel. Can you give me an answer that I've been unable to get off the government portals or the REIQ, so it's Queensland agent? If a buyer needs to travel 200 k's to a private home inspection, are they allowed to do this to travel? Obviously not crossing state borders. Gentlemen, we all have different opinions on this one.
Yeah, look, I think at this point in time, it's still seen as an essential service. Like we've got shutdowns, we've got breakdowns in our state. I can't drive more than an hour from Perth without being pulled over now and being asked why I'm doing it. And I think, sorry, can you see me? I just had a phone call come through. So look, if I was to go through that checkpoint, I'm quite comfortable if I said, listen, I've got a listing here that I've got to open up to show a buyer. That's still essential service. That's still business.
Yeah, I'd be guessing the same. There's grey areas in all this legislation that you've got to interpret the way you hope that the law does as well. But yeah, it's an essential service. Whether you've got to drive 2 kilometres or 200, you're still doing the same thing.
Yeah, I think if you've got your caravan on the back, they're probably then likely to be a little bit more dubious about you. But if you've got the listing paperwork, or if they've got a printout of the ad or something that they're looking at, look, I'm pretty sure they're going to let you through.
Yeah, all meeting times booked in, everything else. And
yeah,
look, reality is if the property industry comes to complete halt and/or construction, that looming recession will come crashing down massively on us.
I've got friends in New Zealand. I've got agent friends in New Zealand that are talking about the situation there now. They're obviously at one level elevated higher than us in terms of their shutdown. And as you'd probably know, settlements there cannot happen now. And I think there's about 15,000 settlements in the can that were supposed to have happened already that have already just been pushed back and delayed until this thing's over.
Yeah.
And we certainly don't want that.
It's amazing. I've got a neighbour around the corner from us, and they sold a couple of months ago, and they sold within a day. And they're due to move into a property that's been constructed, and construction, it's been pushed out by a month now. But the people that have bought their house are a young family, 2 lawyers, funny enough, so they don't want to get in a argy-bargy with them, but their house, and then they've got to move in. So these people have to move out, and they have to find temporary accommodation for 2 months until the other place is going to be done. They're thrown well out of whack because they're retirees downsizing. So they had an auction to sell off all their stuff that they're not going to need. All of a sudden they can't do that. So it's it really is the flow-on effect into other industries too.
Yeah.
It really does hurt people. Now, I've got a comment here from Nigel Christie. Thank you, Nigel. He sells real properties and it does work well. So this is going back to your one, Dean, from earlier, and encourages buyers to make a bid/offer straight away. So thanks for that bit of feedback, Nigel. Much appreciated. I've got another question here from Evelyn. Can anyone tell me what happens if a buyer's internet falls over during the final bidding process? This is quite a good question.
Yeah, look, we do run through that specifically in the training. It all comes down to your management of the buyers leading up to that final bidding stage, as we refer to it. And you want to let them know that they want to make sure that they're in an area that's got good, reliable Wi-Fi, all their devices are charged up, and it doesn't hurt to have a secondary device there just in case the computer freezes. They can always jump onto the phone. But equally, the agent has a pause button that if it all did, the wheels fell off, then they can press pause, let that buyer catch their breath, reset the computer, turn the phone back on, and away you go. So I think last year, the stability of the Openn Negotiation app was 99.9997% that it was live for. So no shutdowns, no glitches, 99.997.
Okay, fantastic.
Yeah.
I've done 70 of these with an average of 4.7 bidders, and not one of them have I had say that their internet was down or that the app glitched or anything like that. So it hasn't happened to date.
There's been exhaustive testing on it. It's a very, very robust, and I think it's robust, but it's simple. We don't have a streaming or anything on it that sucks heaps of bandwidth. It's actually a pretty simple app, and it was designed to be simple so that it would be robust.
Fantastic. Well, Dean's popped through something else, another communication. He's 2 hours from Melbourne, and he said private inspections are allowed down here. And he's saying, yet again, take your communications with you and encourage the clients to take that if they are pulled over, emails, have it booked in your diary, etc. Fantastic. Now, guys, the way the property is transacted and has been forced to change, what do you think will stick once this COVID-19 up and goes?
I think that the use of tech will stick. We're finding that our time management is much more effective when we're working from home, for starters. I'm not suggesting everyone will work from home at all times, but it certainly gives you the capability of doing that if need be, depending on geography to your office. And things like open negotiation, a lot of agents have picked it up in these trying times and then have all of a sudden realised that it's not just for trying times, it's for all times. So I think that will stick for the majority moving forward. Yeah, that's how I see it moving or happening.
Yeah, look, I would definitely agree. And I think these sorts of meetings as well are going to become more and more accepted moving forward as well. You know, the idea that you've got to drive the 2 hours to a meeting or fly one side of the country to another to train or present to a group, no longer necessary.
Fantastic. All right, guys. Well, that's all the questions that have come through. So on behalf of us, we are looking very excited about this partnership that's kicked off now. And we look at working with you guys too well there at McGrath across the board. We're talking to Glenn and the guys at corporate.
Oh, good.
From our point of view, we'd like to thank everybody that's joined us today and look forward to you joining us for our next webinar, which I'm on the phone to Tom Panos in about 10 minutes because looks like he will be our next guest, which will be exciting. And here's a bloke who loves a webinar and has had many of them lately. We look forward to having a very safe, very secluded Easter, and we wish everybody out there a very safe and happy Easter. And just please remember, be safe, isolate, still enjoy it, enjoy your time with your family. We all work so much and we all travel so much and we live in the world of now where we are doing this all the time. Interestingly enough, I said to our CEO last night, I had my nephew's 18th birthday last night via Zoom. I had his little brother's birthday 2 days prior to that via Zoom. And I had my niece's birthday 2 days prior to that via Zoom. I'm all birthday caked out. We've made sure we've had a cake at this end, so our kids feel like they're part of it all. But seriously, on behalf of us, thank you, gentlemen, for your time this morning, or this afternoon, or this morning for you, Brad, in Perth. Have a safe and happy Easter, and we look forward to chatting again soon.
You too. Thanks, Paul. Thanks for your time.
Thanks, guys. Thanks to all the attendees. Bye.
Bye.